It's 1903, Long Island, New York. On a quiet stretch of farmland, a tower is erected. 187 feet tall, a copper dome on top, tunnels dug deep into the earth below. The locals don't understand it. Some call it a lighthouse, others a weapon. But to Nikola Tesla, it is neither. To him, this is the future. A machine to send power through the air itself. No wires, no coal, no oil. Electricity drawn from the earth and shared with all. Villages, ships, entire continents lit by invisible currents. It was to be called Wardenclyffe Tower. Nikola Tesla was born on July 10, 1856, in the village of Smiljan, located in Croatia. He was the fourth of 5 children of Milton and Duga Tesla, with an older brother named Dane and 3 sisters, Angelina, Milka, and Marika. Dane, the eldest, tragically died in a horse riding accident while Tesla was still young, a loss that deeply affected the family. As a child, Tesla showed signs of brilliance. He was said to have a photographic memory and would stun teachers by solving advanced mathematics in his head. In 1870, Tesla began studying physics and engineering in Karlovac and later Graz and Prague. Tesla's career began in Europe, working at the Budapest Telephone Exchange along with the Central Telegraph Office in Paris. By 1884, he emigrated to the United States, where he briefly worked for Thomas Edison. Within a few years, Tesla broke away, founding his own company, inventing the alternating current motor, and licensing his patents to George Westinghouse. This secured him both fame and wealth, and it was AC power, as opposed to Edison's DC, that lit the Chicago World's Fair in 1893. At the dawn of the 20th century, electricity was no longer a novelty. It was becoming essential. Cities across America and Europe were glowing with incandescent light. Factories ran through the night, powered by new grids of alternating current. Yet, much of the world still lived in darkness. In rural America, only about 5% of households had electricity. And across oceans, most villages had none at all. At the same time, communication was undergoing its own revolution. Telegraph cables crisscrossed continents and oceans, but they were expensive, fragile, and limited to the wealthiest nations. Guglielmo Marconi had only just begun experimenting with sending signals wirelessly across the Atlantic. Tesla saw both problems, power and communication, as one. He believed the Earth itself could be used to conduct energy, allowing signals, information, and even electricity to be transmitted without wires. His vision was audacious. A single global system that could light entire cities, power ships at sea, and connect people across continents instantly. This idea would form into one of the strangest structures ever built on American soil, Wardenclyffe Tower. To turn his vision into reality, Tesla needed more than ideas. He needed money. And at the time, no financer was more powerful than John Pierpont Morgan. Morgan had already consolidated the railroad, steel, and banking industries. Now he was backing the expansion of electrical power. In 1900, Tesla approached Morgan with a proposal. Officially, it was for a new kind of wireless telegraphy, one that could outcompete Marconi by transmitting signals across the Atlantic with greater power and reliability. Morgan was intrigued. Transoceanic communication promised enormous profits, and Tesla's reputation as an inventor gave the scheme credibility. Morgan agreed to invest $150,000, the equivalent to about $5.8 million in today's currency. With that money, Tesla purchased 200 acres of land on the north shore of Long Island and began construction of a facility that would house his greatest experiment. What Morgan didn't know is that Tesla's ambitions went far beyond telegraphy. His true goal was to not just send messages without wires, but to transmit electricity itself. Construction began in 1901. Tesla hired architect Stanford White, one of New York's most prominent designers, to create the laboratory buildings. The centerpiece would be the tower itself, a wooden frame 187 feet tall capped with a massive steel dome sheathed in copper. Beneath it, Tesla ordered the excavation of deep shafts and tunnels, which he believed would allow the tower to transmit energy directly through the earth. The locals watched in confusion. Some thought it was a new kind of lighthouse. Others speculated it was a military project. Inside the adjoining laboratory, Tesla worked feverishly. He installed giant coils and experimental transmitters, expanding on designs he had tested in Colorado Springs. To Tesla, Wardenclyffe was not just a tower. It was the prototype for a worldwide network of wireless power and communication. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the future he envisioned was within reach. Officially, Wardenclyffe was a communications project. Tesla had promised Morgan a system that could send telegraphed signals across the Atlantic faster and more reliably than Marconi, but behind the scenes, his ambitions were far greater. Tesla's real goal was nothing less than wireless transmission of power. He believed that the Earth itself could conduct electrical energy. With the right frequency, Tesla thought that he could make the entire planet resonate like a tuning fork, sending usable power to any point on the map. In his vision, homes, factories, and even ships at sea could draw electricity straight from the air. No wires, no coal plants, no fuel. Energy would become just as free and universal as sunlight. But this was not the story Tesla had told Morgan. Free global energy threatened every business model built around selling power. If Tesla succeeded, it would disrupt the very system Morgan had invested his fortune to control. That tension would soon bring Wardenclyffe to the brink of collapse. By 1902, Wardenclyffe Tower was nearing completion, but Tesla's relationship with J.P. Morgan was already unraveling. Morgan had funded the project on the promise of a revolutionary transatlantic wireless telegraph. Yet as reports filtered back to him, it became clear Tesla was pursuing something far more radical. For Morgan, this was a disaster. Telegraphy could be monetized, but free global electricity threatened the entire business model of energy distribution. Why would anyone pay for copper wires, power stations, or transmission fees if they could draw energy directly from the air? When Tesla returned to Morgan for more funding, the banker refused. Worse, Marconi was making headlines for his successful wireless transmissions using far less money and simpler equipment. Investors and newspapers began to lose faith in Tesla's vision. With debts mounting and construction unfinished, Tesla found himself in an impossible position. Too far to turn back, but without the backing he desperately needed to continue. By 1903, Wardenclyffe was already in trouble. The great wooden tower loomed over the Long Island coast, but inside the laboratory, progress had stalled. Tesla had poured nearly all of Morgan's money into construction, and the experimental equipment was incomplete. With creditors demanding payment, he began writing desperate letters to Morgan, pleading for additional support. However, Morgan had moved on. Marconi's wireless company was rapidly expanding, and investors saw it as a safer bet. Newspapers mocked Tesla's project as extravagant and impractical. Even Tesla's allies began to distance themselves. By 1905, the project was effectively abandoned. Tesla dismissed most of his staff, and the tower stood silent, a skeleton of ambition, unfinished and unfunded. What had once been promised as the gateway to a new era was now little more than a curiosity on the Long Island horizon. When Wardenclyffe fell silent, so too did Tesla's grandest dream. For the rest of his life, he carried the project like a wound that never healed. Though he explored new inventions, from bladeless turbines to particle beams, none matched the scale or promise of Wardenclyffe. Investors lost faith, and Tesla's reputation faded from visionary to eccentric. In 1917, the US government ordered the structure demolished, fearing it could guide German submarines during World War I. Its copper dome was sold for scrap, leaving only rubble and the fading memory of an extraordinary idea. Yet, Tesla's vision endured. Wardenclyffe became both a cautionary tale and a symbol of boundless imagination. The tension between invention and profit, idealism and reality. Today, it survives not as a tower, but as a story, proof of how far one man dared to dream, and a glimpse of a world where energy might have flowed as freely as the air.